If Ursa killed Ozai, if Zuko's mom Ursa decided to poison Ozai instead of letting Ozai use the poison to poison Azulon, what would have happened? So Ursa confronts Ozai and asks him what he's going to do to Zuko. And Ozai admits that he's going to kill Zuko because that's what Azulon commanded him to do. And Ursa finally gets courage and strength, and she decides to take brutal action to protect Zuko. So Ursa makes the poison and she slips it in to Ozai's drink, and Ozai drinks it and dies. And even though Ozai is very smart, he probably would not be able to detect the poison because the poison is odorless, undetectable, and leaves no trace. So Ozai dies mysteriously. Now at this point, Fire Lord Azulon would probably allow Zuko to live. The reason being that the only reason that Azulon ordered for Zuko to be killed was because Azulon wanted to punish Ozai, because Ozai asked for Iroh's birthright. Ozai asked to take the throne simply because Iroh's son, Lieutenant, died. So Azulon basically was just furious and angry, and he wanted Ozai to suffer the same way that Iroh has, so that Ozai would just learn a lesson and not be mean to Iroh. But with Ozai dead, there's no need for Zuko to die. So Azulon would probably allow for Ursa to stay in the Fire Nation palace, and Zuko and Azula would still be around. Now, without Ozai influencing Azula, Azula could turn out differently, although not necessarily. So Azula would probably always be very suspicious of her mother and wonder what exactly she did to Zuko, because I think Azula, being smart, might realize that Ursa did something. Now, meanwhile, Iroh would return to the palace, or actually, yeah, he would return to the palace in this case because Iroh's son Lieutenant has died, but also Iroh's brother Ozai has died. So Iroh, even though Ozai was terrible, Iroh would still feel sad that Ozai died, and Iroh would, of course, really want to be nice to Zuko and Azula and Ursa in this time because they have suffered a loss too, and they would want to empathize together and just be a good family. And I think that in this scenario, Iroh would still take on the role of Zuko's fatherly figure, and they would still get very close, and it would be all good. And Iroh would probably ask Azulon to make Zuko his heir. So basically, after Azulon, Iroh is going to become Fire Lord, but after Iroh, Zuko becomes Fire Lord. And I think Azulon would just agree to it because, yeah, why not? And Azulon, I think, would listen to Iroh and do as Iroh wants. Now, in this scenario, because Azulon would never be poisoned by Ozai, Azulon would still be alive. And that means that when Aang returns, Aang would still go on the same adventures, but Zuko and Iroh would not be chasing him because Zuko would never have been banished. So it would be a lot easier to go through things. Although when Aang gets captured by Admiral Zhao, that's going to be very troublesome. Although I would imagine that eventually Katara and Sokka would rescue him from there. So that might take a little longer. But basically, I think Iroh would still have a change, and he would still be he would turn to a good person. And Zuko might turn out better too. And Ursa would, of course, still be in the picture and be doing good things. Of course, the only problem is Azula. Now, when Aang is getting ready and mastering all the elements, in context, Aang is a 12-year-old boy, and he is very agile. Meanwhile, Azulon is a 100-year-old man, and even though Azulon is a very powerful firebender, Azulon being 100 years old, that's not going to be very good for him. He's not necessarily going to be in the best physical condition to fight. So maybe the 100-Year War ends more quickly and Iroh can ensure a smoother transition. So perhaps Ursa killing Ozai would have just made things go a lot smoother.